Tuesday morning in Simpsonville, South Carolina, and it's going to be a beautiful day here. We're hoping to head back to the mountain today and get back to the cooler weather up there on the top of the mountain after the wedding in Florida. But we're in Mark chapter 13. Have you ever noticed how much emphasis we put on buildings? Back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, they were the red brick buildings with the spires going up into the heavens with the highest steeple you could possibly put on a building, pointing to God. And then there came a time of wanting nice, but being more practical and leaving steeples off and building with metal frames and nice fascias and modern interiors with modern sculptured pews and carpeting and so on. And then there was the baby boomer generation that started building churches that looked like car room show lots, very, very modern, don't look at all like sanctuaries. Some that tried to combine gymnasiums with worship centers all in one building. There was a proliferation of a lot of different styles a few years back, and it's always interesting to see how people ooh and ah over buildings. In the clip that you saw at the very beginning, you saw the inside of the old sanctuary for Bell Shoals Baptist Church, and you may have oohed and ahhed when you saw the beautiful columns on the platform saying how beautiful that was. And that was a very nice building. Those columns were not there at that time. As a matter of fact, they were put in just for the wedding, and they're a facade. That is, they're just rippled aluminum that have been riveted together and painted white and wrapped in shrink wrap so that they sparkle and look like very expensive Roman columns. So you can see that facades are often the case, and the new sanctuary of Bell Shoals Baptist Church is a $25 million edifice. And, here we come with Jerusalem as the center of the text today. Jesus is coming out of the temple, and his disciples turn around and look back, and they say, "What a beautiful building. Look at the beautiful stones. Look how gorgeous it is." And Jesus tells them not one stone will be left upon the other. And he's looking ahead just 40 years. Now, it's an incredible prophecy. Not one stone left upon another. And it's incredible because it's 40 years in the advance when the Romans would totally destroy the temple. And you say, well, how would they pull down all of those stones? It's said that some of the stones were 20 feet by 40 feet and weighed 200,000 pounds a stone. So how would they pull those apart? Well, greed is a wonderful thing and a terrible thing. Greed brought this prophecy to a complete fulfillment in the fact that when the temple was destroyed, it was burned. And the gold melted. There was a lot of gold in the temple. The gold melted and found its way between cracks in the stones. And guess what? There's always one more prospector that thinks he'll find a find of gold. And so he's going to pull apart every stone, and no matter how much effort it takes, to see if there's any gold between the stones. And so the prophecy was fulfilled exactly. But there's also short-term, long-term, medium-term prophecies, and this particular statement of Jesus as he's on the Mount of Olives looking back at the temple with his closer inner circle, Peter, James, John, in this case Andrew was added, and they privately were talking about it, and they said, when will these things happen? And what will be the sign of the end times? And so Jesus kind of intermingles prophecies here as he tells them about what's going to happen in just 40 years. But he also looks a little bit longer than that. As a matter of fact, he may look all the way to the very final end times. Because he says, you're going to have some that are going to come in my name. We've already had that and may continue to have that. And then we're going to have wars and rumors of wars, and we may have already had that, and we are having that. And you say kingdoms are going to raise against kingdoms, and look how many countries are fighting within, factions in Iraq and Afghanistan and Iran, and all of the Middle East is just torn by kingdoms rising up against kingdoms. And then earthquakes, and I picked up the headlines of the USA Today, and it said over 370 killed in China earthquake, 6.1 on the Richter scale. And so we have no doubt an increase in earthquakes. We've had earthquakes here in the United States, and so we see these things, and he says, now don't panic, because those are just the birth pangs. Those are just the early stages of what's going to happen. And so we see that we have these near-term and far-term prophecies that are all unfolding before our very eyes. We have the past hindsight of seeing the temple torn down and the stones torn apart as they looked for the gold, and we have the signs that are birth pangs that have already happened and are happening around us, and we know that it won't be long. All of the players are in place and all of the scenes are in place for final end time. And who knows exactly when that's going to be? Nobody knows for sure, but we do know it can't be far away at this point. Now remember, the temple took from 20 BC to 64 AD to build. That's 85 years in construction. And Herod the Great started it. When it was finally finished, it was a magnificent place of worship. But you know, the place of worship is not a building. It doesn't matter whether you spend $25 million or whether you spend $25,000 or if you don't spend any money at all and just rent a building. The place of worship is in the heart. And all of our buildings can be torn down, and we can be prohibited from going into any buildings and assembling for worship. But worship is still possible because Jesus resides in our heart. The temple of God now dwells in us, and he's only a prayer away. That's your thought for the day. I hope you have a great day worshiping the Savior. You don't need a $25 million building. You don't need a temple that took 85 years to build. But you can just worship him in your heart right now, right where you are. God bless you and have a great day.